Hello, it's Scott Manley here, and we are in episode 24 of Reusable Space Program. Now, when we last left this, we were preparing to set out for the planet Joule, but part of the process is we're going to need fuel, and we're still working on our fuel base on the moon. You can see it in the background there. Now, one of the logistical challenges that I was presented with was moving the habitation module, and I had originally planned to do that using the winch. However, if you remember, it broke when I tried to use it, and so therefore, I was very happy when the developers of Kerbal Attachment system finally produced an update for Kerbal Space Program 0.19. As such, I decided to set out and match orbits with the winch system, which I had cast away into space in a rage. Hopefully, now that it has spent some time all on its own without any company, it will figure out what's in its best interests and perhaps do as I desire. And by I do as I desire, I mean pick things up. I don't mean other weird things you might do with a winch, whatever those might be. No, we are in lunar orbit. We are docking. Of course, pay attention to the top left, the camera, the docking camera we used. But yes, we picked it up, and it says all sorts of errors. There are no parts attached. Apparently, winches built with the previous version no longer work, and I'm going to need to do something radical if I'm going to make this happen again. I will probably return this to the planet Kerbin, and I don't know. I guess I can return it to the planet Kerbin on the next available flight, and yeah, possibly replace it with a new and improved winch. But at this point, I've no idea. I can't get it to work. I push buttons, but it refuses to do anything I say. So yes, I set forth for the Artemis station. Now you'll notice the not so subtle edit there, where I performed a software upgrade on my mechanical jeb install. I've been doing that on ship after ship, but it's a manual process that involves editing the save file and basically modifying a bunch of fields. So I'm more or less still going to fly this like the old way. I'm just going to appreciate the new and fantastic UI, which looks way cooler. It doesn't look like the Romfarer UI anymore. So yes, we did a quick skip to catch up on it. Well, what I did was I accelerated towards it, and then fired towards the planet so that my orbit would go down and then up and then catch again. And yes, I was telling you to take a look at the Romfarer plugin in the top left. I think Mechanical Jeb has done something to it, because for some reason all the Romfarer windows are now framed in NyanCat. In all Nyan glory. Yes, I'm wondering, is there a NyanCat mod for Kerbal Space Program? Can I fly a module around that just goes nyan 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 nyan? Oh, yeah. Never mind. I actually prefer Neon Waits, which is nyan 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 nyan. It's a joke. You'll have to go and check it out. Neon Waits, look for it. Absolutely serious. Anyway, yeah, bringing this thing in for docking. It's just standard thing, and at this point I'm saying, yeah, I wish I had put lighting on this thing so I could see it, because it is bloody hard. I have learned, since I've used the docking module of the docking camera, that it is actually wise to frame your docking ports with something like batteries which have bright lights on them that make them more visible. It's a good idea. Anyway, it's Space Tug time, so we can at least grab this winch. Space Tug's job is to grab little things and move them around, things that don't have their own engines, things like the winch. And it's also pretty busy out at this station. I should probably send some of my spacecraft home, but you know, that would require some time and effort and all that. We'll send them when we have a purpose for them. Crew rotation should be continuing in the background, except I'm not going to show you every single crew rotation, because that would be dull as dishwater. No, we're just doing all the other boring, dull as dishwater tasks. Here we are catching this, as it actually does not, this thing is rather more maneuverable, and yeah, It'd be nice to have the winch having some light on it as well. Maybe I can knock it and turn it around. Oh, there we go. Nope, missed completely. Of course, this is all at 4 times normal speed, because otherwise it is horrifically slow at times. And you will especially appreciate it later, seriously, when I was having something, a particular landing was running at 3 frames per second. But yes, now we have it. We shall return it to the station, and we can continue with our plan to recover the inflatable home module from the surface. As we mentioned, the winch was the original plan, but that is not going to be available, so we're going to have to come up with another concept. Now, of course, we're mining Kethane on the moon, and, well, in reality, Kethane doesn't exist, and in fact, there's not many things on the moon that could be converted to rocket fuel. It does appear that some craters may have a decent amount of water ice in them, which could be used, perhaps. You could be mixed with, electrolyzed and used to create rocket fuel. But then again, if you're sending people up there, maybe there's other things they want water for, such as water slides, which would work very well in low gravity, except for the evaporation issues. No, one of the more interesting things to mine on the moon is, of course, helium-3. Okay, so yeah, we're gonna send this thing on an encounter trajectory with the thing. Oh crap! Yes, I just crashed into my own station. But I brought up the window and confirmed nothing is broken. Everything is just spinning around like a crazy thing. So much for the insurance. No claims bonus. Yeah, so just try firing up the stabilizers. Seems to make the thing wobble even more, unfortunately. Especially since that whole arm on the left, which is the core of the station, doesn't actually have any stabilizing hardware on it. It's only the spacecraft attached. Anyway, this is going to head around and it's going to make a low pass over the top of the whole inflatable home module, and the idea is, well, we're going to try and grab it, but we don't have the winch, so we need to put it into a situation whereby we can grab it, and it does have some fuel in it, but I don't think it has enough fuel to get into orbit. So the plan here is we're going to launch this at the right time when it is passing over. We're going to launch it onto a suborbital trajectory, and hopefully, all things, if the winds are with us, we will have enough time on our suborbital trajectory for the Arachne module to come in and grab it and dock and get back into a regular orbit before it is dashed into the surface of the moon into a million pieces. Or perhaps it just bounces off because it is a giant inflatable habitat. I wonder if this thing is more survivable if I make it inflated. Well, regardless, we're going, full speed. The apoapse for this home module is about 30 kilometers. So you can see the altitude gauge going up. Hopefully we will get it before we reach the surface, but we don't know. You can see how close we're getting there, 0.1 kilometers. Although we have mechanical jab up, we're really only using smart ASS, and we've already got it within, like 100 meters. Excellent. 26 kilometers, where you can see the vertical velocity is slowing down, and we're only moving a few meters per second relative to the target. Now we want to grab it in the right location. We want to grab it with our butt, because we want to use the other side for docking. That'll probably be best. But honestly, we don't know. Either or could work. Hey, Nyan Cat docking cam. Is Nyan Cat great at docking? Because apparently I found the Nyan Cat skills to be very useful in docking. There we go. It's good to have these docking ports illuminated. Then you can actually see what it is. I gather that Romfarer went to some great deal of effort to make these video images look rubbish. I would all the same rather have a perfectly photorealistic option. Never mind the filters. I just want something that works. But yes, look! There, we have rescued it barely before we started descending, and now it is time to return it to the Artemis station. The Artemis station, of course, is our fuel depot and will let us refuel this so it may land once more. Anyway, yeah, in real life, there are people that are talking about mining helium-3 from the moon. And the reason, well, there's a number of reasons why helium-3 is interesting related to nuclear fusion, but the reason why it's on the moon is because it gets embedded into the crust from the solar wind. And in theory, if you take enough of the crust, you could extract the helium-3. On Earth, helium, of course, evaporates, escapes into space because it's very, very light. And since helium-3 doesn't come from regular radioactive decay, like regular helium, right, with 2 neutrons and 2 protons, is an alpha particle. If you've heard of alpha radiation, that's a helium nuclei. So radioactive elements in the crust decay, and they produce helium all the time, but they don't produce helium-3. So it's very rare on Earth, but since space is full of cosmic rays and stuff that's smashing things up, it's actually more common in the lunar crust than it would be on Earth. So the next question is, why helium-3? What's cool about helium-3? Well, helium-3 is what's called an aneutronic fusion fuel, right? If you make a fuel mixture of helium-3 and you superheat it, to like 10 billion Kelvin or something, then it will react, and it will react together and produce it will produce basically 2 hydrogen atoms and a helium atom, and it will release energy. And notice the hydrogen atoms are charged, so that's good. And the helium atom, or the helium nucleus and that hydrogen nucleus, they are all charged, right? There is no bare neutron shooting off, so you can capture the energy from helium-3 fusion purely in the plasma, right? Now, deuterium fusion, which is what's being looked at ITER, the International Tokamak, or whatever, nuclear research thing, that's what most of the things have been looking at, because you can fuse that at a lower temperature. But what happens when you hit deuterium against deuterium is actually you'll typically get either helium-3 or tritium produced, and a neutron will fly off, and that neutron can't be contained by the magnetic fields. So it is a highly penetrating radiation, and it will end up embedding itself in the wall of your reactor. Now, that will damage things, and sometimes there's a bunch of ideas to make this useful. One idea is you coat your entire reactor surface with lithium, specifically an isotope called lithium-6. Now, when you bombard lithium-6 with neutrons, it will end up emitting tritium, which is great because, of course, the tritium will go back into your reactor core. Tritium is rare, and it will react with the deuterium to produce more helium and therefore refuel your reactor. But anyway, it's the neutrons are a big problem because you have to deal with shielding. Oh yeah, big problem is my complete inability to actually dock here. Having, of course, a giant inflatable module attached to me makes me kind of a lard ass and unable to dock. It took me a lot of effort, and once again I curse my lack of foresight with not having any batteries on the back of this. Nonetheless, we are refueling this. So yeah, that's the idea, is that, regular fusion cycles, with deuterium or tritium, they release too many neutrons, and so that's, nasty and causes all sorts of problems. But if you can get them hot enough, helium-3 entirely produces charged byproducts. So you can capture that energy more easily, and it's even cleaner. Of course, in the sun, they are fusing hydrogen into helium, but they have to do this by it's a very slow process, right? Hydrogen, if it collides with another hydrogen, that's 2 protons together, that produces a very short-lived isotope of helium called diproton, right? It's basically a helium nuclei with no neutrons. And the problem is that is very, very unstable and will break apart very quickly. But there's a very, very small chance that one of the protons can decay into a neutron and you get deuterium. But it's a very low probability of it happening in that time because the decay process requires the weak nuclear force, right? And the weak nuclear force, well, it's very weak. And so the sun is continually creating these biprotons, right? But most of them are immediately decaying. Some of them are converting into deuterium, and then that deuterium ultimately fuses and forms a helium. But that's why you can do that in suns, because suns have a really long time, but in nuclear reactors you don't have the time and the energy density is too low, so you need to use isotopes that are more conducive to fusion. Anyway, I'm flying this down. This is entirely a manual landing. This is where the physics starts loading and everything gets incredibly slow. This was a pain, but you'll notice I'm running in fine control mode here. The little indicators in the bottom left are blue. I have plenty of fuel this time. I'm just going to try and put the homie's place relatively close to this target. We want to get it between these lights. We still have to bring the other ones across, and I probably won't bother recording that because that would be a very dull drive across the landscape once more. But we're just gonna bring it. I guess I'm trying to aim for the middle, but it's very hard to control this thing. Of course, yeah, this is 4 times faster. The real one was very, very, very slow, and it took an absolute eternity to get this thing down. Of course, we're doing much better on fuel this time, I guess, because we didn't use it all up on previous parts of the journey to the moon. We just refueled in orbit. There, look at that beautiful mining station there, eh? 6 large tanks, all filling up with fuel so that we may return it to space and fuel our endeavors to other planets. Somebody asked me, why am I heading to Joule first? Because surely Duna is a better option. And I would absolutely agree, except for the fact that the Duna window is something like 300 days away, whereas the Joule window is 30 days away. So I am probably going for the first opportunity. Besides, it's kind of cool to go to Joule because there's so many things to explore. Ah, yes. So what's going on here? We've got everything running. This is inflating. Hopefully the plants have survived being squished up. I did check that there was nobody inside there, because it would be a rather cramped journey in there at this time. But the plants, I like how the plants just pop out and are magically working again. Okay, so now we have to bring our fuel tanker, bring it to the station and load it up. This is already previously has been filled up previously, and if you remember, we were refueling our lander on the surface, the one that was dropping the extra tanks. This one is now got a decent amount of fuel, and it's gonna dock up. We're gonna transfer, and then it shall return to the surface so that it may pick up another load. Which docking port to use? I guess there's only one actual docking port that is part of the station right now. Yeah, we have a full house, so to speak. We have the space tug, we have the Generation 1 lander, we have the space bus, we have the space train, and we have the space crane. Good thing that we don't have any other spacecraft, because we're going to need an extension on this moon station thing. The Artemis station, taking all the craft that she can. And once again, you'll notice I've picked the worst possible angle with the sun behind the docking port, therefore I can't see anything. This is just gonna have to do. I think I could see the middle of that. Yeah, I can just about see the middle. Ron Fader, would it be too much to ask to have like contrast controls on that monitor that I could adjust? It would be really nice. I'm wondering if that will become a standard part, to be honest. It'll be nice. And I am waiting for Clara Lyra's official versions of the Kerbal X pack with all the interior of the panopticon and the one-man lander can. I'm seriously looking forward to that stuff. But of course, we haven't had any dev streams for a while. There's stuff going on, and we are talking about how to replace those with collaboration with the community. But nevertheless, I am docking up, and now it's going to be lots of boring fuel transfer, which you don't need to know anything about because it is just a lot of right-clicking. And because somebody always asks how I transfer fuel, hold Alt and right click on the tanks, right? I know everybody else knows, but I get asked that question all the time. Also, square bracket keys to switch spacecraft. I know. Hey, I managed to get away without crashing into the space station this time. I'm not a terrible pilot anymore. So yes, we got to aim for the base, which will require, of course, another deorbit burn and another plane change. I don't know how much fuel I've left in this thing. I kind of basically guessed at how much fuel I would need to land because, so a space tanker, the less fuel you take down, the more fuel you can take back up, right? The better efficiency you have. The more efficiency you have. What a terrible phrase. I are a good English speaker. My grammar is good. No, okay, so yes, this is going to be another semi-manual landing. I have the landing autopilot up, if the idea being that if I get it in exactly the right place, I can just hit land, but that is going to be a lot of guesswork. And you can see my fuel supply is really, really low. In fact, I think I have less than a few hundred units of fuel, maybe less than 200 units of fuel at this point. I don't actually remember. Now, you see I'm kind of turning left and right, trying to get my approach vector exactly over the site while killing velocity as well. We're down to a couple of 100 meters per second. Now at some point the pain will kick in and we will have like 2 frames per second. It'll become really obvious because I'll be, of course, within 2.5 kilometers. And there we go! Pause! And it comes back. Of course, that pause was 4 times longer from me. I could practically go and get a, drink or something. And I don't mean an easy one. I mean like a cup of tea in the time sometimes this takes to load. Okay, so I've got surface information up, and I'm trying to aim it to get it really close to one of these targets, right? Because we need to refuel. And I don't want to land it near the home thing, so I kind of start to overcompensate. This is basically, mechanical jab is if I let go of the keys, mechanical jab takes over, but if I keep control, it will do as I ask, and so I'm trying to do as I ask. So there I am. Now I'm thinking, I'm almost there. I need to move a little over. Of course, it doesn't look that way because I'm running really slowly. Now I'm slipping sideways too fast. Picking up some serious speed sideways. I'm like, tell the landing autopilot to land. So the landing autopilot, I just tell it to go, and you see it firing the engines, and at that point, my fuel runs out. But through a miracle of His Greatness Jebediah, by Jebediah, that was a good landing. Oh my goodness. Yes, we made it. We made it. Now, the only thing is, I'm hoping that it's close enough to this fuel base to actually refuel, because I don't know what the range on these fuel lines are. But if I can't actually get the fuel in, I'm going to have to come up with something. I think I could move the other module over and at least give it enough fuel to refuel the main craft. Or at least, move it a little further. Now, I'm trying to find where the fuel transfer nodes are. I think there's one under there, but clicking on it doesn't work until you're right within 1 meter off it. You see it on the underside? Aha, there it is. I spy you, you little orange beastie you. If you get the quantum fuel transfer system, when I got it, it didn't come with these textures or these models as default. This was added by somebody later. And the nice thing is, because of the same size and collision mesh, you can use them in existing spacecraft, right? You can just load the mod and it'll change out. Yes, let me run over to this rocket and we'll prepare to refuel it. I do have more work being done on the spacecraft, the transfer spacecraft. There's none of it in this episode. There needs to be another drive section and a science section, and I'm going to try and get a rover on it. The big question is the amount of delta V I can put on this thing. But there we go! We have fuel. We are transferring it. You can see the little dots coming in. You can see fuel going in. We are successful, and therefore our mission to Joule is back on schedule. I'm Scott Manley. Fly safe.